Welcome everybody. Sorry for a little bit late start. It's July 17th, 2018, and it is 6:34 p.m. We're here for a regular business meeting of the Laramie City Council. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Could you please rise and join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, can you do a roll call, please?
Gabriel.
Here.
Hanson absent. McKinney.
Here.
Kalikas.
Here.
Shumway.
Here.
Schuster.
Here.
Stoner. Here. Pierce.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
That's 8 present and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. We don't have any proclamations or presentations tonight, so we'll go to public hearings. City Clerk, can you read the notice, please?
Notice is hereby given that the City Council will hold the following public hearing at 6:30 p.m. on July 17th, 2018 in the City Council Chambers, Laramie City Hall, 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming, to take public comments or protests on the following ordinance. Original ordinance number 1986, amending Chapter 12 of the Laramie Municipal Code by deleting sections 12.08.110 and 12.08.120 and amending sections 12.08.090 and 12.08.100 related to the obstructions on city streets, sidewalks, alleys, and public easements. All information relative to this matter is available for review at the City of Laramie City Clerk's office at 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present or may be represented by his or her agent at the meeting.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I'll open this up to public comment. Is there anybody who would like to make public comment? Please come forward. Welcome.
Mayor, City Council members, Chantel Anderson, Chair of Laramie Main Street Alliance. And first I want to apologize for not being here 2 weeks ago when this first came up, but we didn't see it as an issue, so I just bowed out for a week. But I just wanted to express, this is just an update in the language. We don't have any issues with this as far as Main Street goes. It's just giving that authority that has kind of already been assumed and just clearing up that language. So we'll be back next time when it's the fee discussion again, but as far as this actual ordinance, Main Street is on board with the changes in this, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to make public comment on this ordinance change? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment on that item. And we will move to item number 4C, announcements. City Manager, do we have any announcements this evening? Thank you. So I have one very old ordinance here. Looks like it was approved May 26th, 1884. It is entitled Immoderate Riding. And it says, if any person shall immoderately ride or drive any horse or other animal in any avenue, street, alley, lane, or thoroughfare within the limits of the city, that person shall upon conviction be fined a sum of not less than $5 nor more than $100. So my question is, what is the definition of immoderate riding?
That's our original
Undefined.
DUI.
Yeah, that's what I think that might be it. The original DUI, $100 fine in 1884. That would be pretty. Yeah, that'd be a lot of money. So
I believe on the PDF on the agenda it says 1986. So I was really worried that it was not recent ago. I was like,
all right, so let's move on to item number 5, disclosures by city council members. Does anybody have any disclosures tonight on any items?
oh no.
Okay, seeing none, go to the vice mayor for changes in the agenda.
Right, so I move that the following change to the agenda be approved. We are adding an item. It is going to be item 13A. We're adding it to our regular agenda. It is a resolution pertaining to the submittal of a build transportation grant. Do you want me to keep going? Yeah. Build transportation grant to the United States Department of Transportation to support planning and engineering related to West Laramie paving.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shumway. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Vice Mayor,
Let's see, I move that the agenda be set as changed.
do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor McKinney. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Vice Mayor.
I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Do you have a
Second.
Second by Counselor Gabriel. City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Hanson, absent. McKinney?
Yes.
Polikis?
Yes.
Schuster?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Stoner?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. Moving on to the regular agenda, item number 10, Counselor McKinney.
I move to authorize the City of Laramie to award the bid to Braun Northwest Incorporated in the amount of $177,381 for the purpose of purchasing Type 1 Class 1 ambulance and authorize the city manager to sign.
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Chief.
Honorable Mayor, members of council, we're scheduled this fiscal year to replace our MS 143 ambulance. It's a full-size Type 1 ambulance. Our spec committee got together, approved the specs. We went to bid. We only received 2 bids on the unit. We're recommending the bid that came in a little bit higher. We called the manufacturer of the lower bid. They came in at $159,891. Their module, which is the back part of the ambulance, so there's the chassis part and there's the back part. The back part, they wouldn't commit on the specs to the configuration. It was just generally they'll meet the overall size dimensions of an ambulance. And what we found out is they don't really know what unit would go on it because it's being repurposed from some other ambulance. So they put an old box on a new chassis. That's a good way of repurposing ambulances and boxes and stuff. The problem for us is we run 5 ambulances, our same crews road, they don't know what ambulance they're going to be on. We make every effort to keep our layouts the same in the back. Our plan is to repurpose our own ones that we're buying new onto new chassis. A good example of what those costs will be in the future are we had one roll over this spring, and it's right now getting remounted with a new chassis, and they're fixing the box and putting it on. The bid for that from the Braun company is $113. So I think that even the $159 is pretty high for a remount. So we're recommending the $177 for a brand new unit, brand new box. The plan will be to remount that one twice in the future, and as we're doing with our other ones when they come in. If you have any questions?
Questions for Chief?
Okay.
Seeing none. All right. Thank you. Is there any comment from the public on this item? Okay. Seeing none. Any discussion or comment from the council on this item? Seeing none. City Clerk, can you do a roll call, please?
Gabriel?
Yes.
McKinney?
Yes.
Polikis?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Schuster?
Yes.
Stoner?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. On to item number 11. Counselor Stoner, please.
Thanks, Mayor. I move to approve the Cirrus Sky Technology Park East Phase Preliminary Plat, PP 1604, based on findings of fact and conclusions of law and subject to staff's recommended conditions.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Mr. Tini.
Mayor, Council, good evening. The item before you is the Cirrus Sky Preliminary Plat East Phase. The Cirrus Sky Preliminary Plat, as you know, was considered by this council some years ago, and it subdivided the land that we all call the Cirrus Sky Technology Park into 4 lots and 2 outlots. So for the council, what I would ask is, there is a lot of background and history that I've included in the staff report. If you want me to go through that, I'm more than willing to go through that if you feel that's important to your discussion. Otherwise, I can really kind of breeze through a little bit of that and then focus on really the current preliminary plat. Is there a preference that the council would like?
Is there anybody who would like the additional background information, or are we okay with the shortened information? Breeze through.
Awesome. That's that is fine with me as well. So, council, as I mentioned, the Cirrus Sky this is the second time you've seen a preliminary plat for the Sierra Sky Technology Park. The original Sierra Sky Technology Park divided the land that we had purchased into 4 large, I call them mega lots, and 2 large outlots that we used for open space. Today, if you go up to the site, you can see those 4 lots geographically, which are divided north-south by 22nd Street and the roundabout, with the roundabout being kind of the central hub of the 4 lots, and then a lot located in each of the quadrants of that roundabout. And then where the Sierra Sky Trail is today are the 2 large outlots that were created. What's important is that original layout really follows the large, big picture Sierra Sky Technology Park concept plan, which included this property as well as the whole kind of northern region of our community. If you all remember when we were approached by Verizon into our community, when they were looking at property further north of this property, it really put us on the map and also brought to our attention as a community of the potential that this property might have through the planning that was done with the technology park concept for the whole northern concept, as well as the later individual plan for just the Sierra Sky Technology Park. You'll see that this preliminary plat that's being proposed for the east half, so the area between 22nd Street and 30th Street, really is a reflection of those larger plans, but also that more focused plan that we developed in 2015. The planning that was done during those times was a large piece of the big picture puzzle of developing this area. If you remember, the property was located in the county at the time. It was annexed. The property was zoned. There was a comprehensive plan amendment associated with it, and a new zoning district was developed for the technology and office park zoning. The idea there is that we developed a zoning district that would specifically accommodate the uses that we desired within this area, and it was something our current zoning code really didn't have didn't really have within it, built into the framework of other zoning districts, but also didn't reflect the desires that we had within the planning documents that had been developed by the council. The 2013 preliminary plat, like I said, created the 4 lots and the 2 outlots that followed the general big concept plan as well as some of the following plans. And then really what you have is where we're at today. The Laramie Chamber Business Alliance has applied to go through the preliminary plat process to plat the eastern phase of the development. The eastern phase, like I said, is bounded on the west side by 22nd Street, on the east side by 30th Street. The southern side is basically the trail corridor, and the northern side is what's called the asphalt lane, but it's a easement located road that's located on the north side of the site, but outside of the project area. The plat is about 73 acres. With the creation of this, you'll have 25 lots comprised or prepared for this technology and office development. The preliminary plat really doesn't change the overall layout, except it does divide those larger tracts of land into smaller tracts of land to allow for that flexibility and desire needed within the technology office park. So that smaller uses, similar to those uses that you see up there today with the 2 buildings that are up there, which is the UL building and the spec building is what we call it. But also to allow for flexibility, and if larger users come in, lots can be combined so that those users can associate and be part of that whole technology office park area. Generally speaking, what you have is you have 22nd Street, which is already partially constructed up into the cul-de-sac area. 22nd will continue north of that all the way up to Asphalt Lane. Also, you'll see Cumulus Drive, which is the drive that goes north of the 2 buildings that are existing up at the site right now. That will extend all the way to the east and connect into 30th Street. You then have 2 cul-de-sacs that come off the south in Cumulus Drive, so that they create lots that overlook the ridge line. And that was one of the large desires of the planning documents that you have, is to create that environment, but also connect them to the rest of the community in that fashion. And then you have 2 roads that will extend for this time up to Asphalt Lane, but probably provide further connections further to the north as we see development occur. All of those lots provide access to the individual lots that are created. Of note, you'll see that along 22nd Street, there are lots that front both on 22nd Street and the street that's located directly to the east of that. Those lots there will be required to access off of that street to the east. And I'll tell you what that street is because I didn't pull my map out right away, which is Stratus Drive, for reference.
I was sitting here thinking, what could it be?
They are all cloud names, yes, or atmospheric type names. So the other street network that you'll see is there's also the street which is Nimbus Drive. That's the other north-south street that is located more along the edge of the power substation that's currently located up at that site. And then, as I mentioned, the 2 cul-de-sacs. All those will be constructed to typical normal city standards. Those are all local roads that provide local access to the individual lots there. Of note, Asphalt Lane is outside of this project area. It's not going to see the full construction. It's not part of this land and can't be required to be built. As we see development occur further north, that would be a typical requirement that would be required as they were annexed and come into the city. 30th Street also has a very peculiar layout. Not all of 30th Street is located within this plat as well. As you know, if you've been up to that site, 30th Street is ribbon paved up into the Cumulus Drive kind of intersection there. That will remain. There are parts of this preliminary plat that will be required as final plats come through to provide funding and in lieu of construction money for the portions of 30th Street that are located within this. However, this 30th Street also falls in that same category as it was outside this preliminary plat and outside the bounds of this. The improvements though that have been done provide for the necessary access, at least for the time being, and will require those improvements as we move forward. The preliminary plat does comply with all the zoning standards of the technology and office overlay, as well as the comprehensive plan, because we did those things very recently. Noting importance of the major street plan, 22nd is on the major street plan. All of that will be constructed to typical standards required for the major street plan. So it'll be a little bit more of a beefier street than you would see as some of the local streets there. Going a little bit specifically into some of the more details about the project, beyond the general lot layout. One of the major components within this within the planning documents that were looked at and done by council was the open space components. One, the trail components. The trail components were a major piece of this project. Those are done. Typically, we wait for those to happen, and so in this case, we can say they're done. You'll see that in the approval process and in some of the conditions, the other major components of the trail network, which is networking off of that trail that's existing, the Sierra Sky Trail, north into the actual subdivision, is conditioned. One of the things that's required by Laramie Municipal Code is that the 2 cul-de-sacs that are located actually be connected. However, in discussions with staff as well as with the applicant, it was recommended that we extend the trails directly south out of the cul-de-sacs and actually use the trail that was already existing. It's really not that much of a difference in walking, but actually saves a lot in terms of construction, but also actually creates a little bit better continuity and use of the actual trail that we just got done building. And so you'll see that as a specific condition of approval within your staff report. Secondly, I'll note that throughout the rest of the subdivision, there are extensive drainage networks that will be through there. Currently, the preliminary plat shows all of the drainage basically being located, and if you take a look at your plat, there are lots 1, 2, and 3. There's a large regional drainage area in that location. One thing that was very unique about this project, and based upon some of the detailed planning that was done, was that it was intended long-term that throughout the network of lots, that drainage facilities would be built in so that the lot, or the large detention area that's located on those 3 lots could possibly be reduced, and using that drainage network to create some of that internal network that's desired for pathways and connectivity between the different users that will eventually go up in that area. There's some conditions that are not, I won't say not typical, but we don't have to write them very often, that are written for this preliminary plat. They give staff the flexibility to work with engineers to come up with if they reduce the amount of water that goes into that regional pond by keeping it on other lots, that we can reduce the pond that's located in lots 1, 2, and 3, so that those lots become more usable and have more usable area. And so you'll see a couple conditions that you see on most preliminary plats. However, they're modified a little bit to give us a little bit more flexibility because of the way the drainage does work on this site. Fire access was also noted. Generally, fire access is very good in this area. We do typically condition preliminary plats to include that at each final plat we can evaluate fire access in case certain drives or streets are too long and don't provide necessary turnarounds. That's a very standard preliminary plat condition. Secondly, when it comes to roads, and as if any of you remember the conversation that was held during the original preliminary plat process, traffic was an important issue in the discussion. One item of note, staff kept the original condition regarding truck and construction traffic that was included in the original preliminary plat of 2013 in this to direct that traffic up to 30th Street versus 22nd Street. That was the one major decision, I would say, council made and conditioned with the original preliminary plat, and we felt that that was appropriate as we continue to move forward. Traffic studies were done. This preliminary plat will be conditioned to include that when lights that are likely to be constructed at both the 30th and 22nd intersections down the hill on Harney Street, on Reynolds Street, that they will pay their proportionate share based upon the traffic that is generated. This is common. We've done this on a couple subdivisions, most recently the Timberline subdivision, if you remember. It's the same concept and same pattern, is that some of that traffic is coming from here, and so that proportion will be there when those triggers are met per the traffic study. Public Works did have some comments, and those are included within your conditions. Of note, one thing that must be pointed out, water availability in this area is excellent. There's no issues in terms of typical fire flows and for uses anticipated in the area. However, sewer is not that. Capacity in the Reynolds line is nearing full. It's almost near 100%. The preliminary plat, when it was developed, includes the amount of volume that's allowed. Give or take, it's probably 6 to 7 lots in the future for the Sirius Sky preliminary plat. The preliminary plat's been conditioned that that's how many lots each final plat will be required to provide the necessary engineering documentation that shows how much sewage goes into the Reynolds line. However, as you all know, the plans for a line further to the north, a trunk line for sewer, is anticipated, which will serve this subdivision, let alone many others in this northern area. The preliminary plat is also conditioned that when that line is constructed, that all sewage is rerouted to that location. That has been the plan since the original construction and preliminary plat. It's designed that way. The 2 lots that are already there are designed to rechannel and go the different direction. So all of that has been in place and is available. And so you'll see those conditions within your preliminary plat. Staff's pretty comfortable with that. We felt it was an appropriate way because if the line for some reason isn't constructed in a timely fashion, we can still allow for development to occur, but we know where that limit is. The developer knows where that limit is as well. Another item that I will address are power lines. As you all know, we recently considered power line changes and changes to our ordinance and regulations regarding power lines. In this area, if you go up there, all the power lines that are located within this area are exempted power lines. Just so you're aware, those power lines will not go underground. They will remain above ground. If they do go underground, that'll be at a voluntary measure by a property owner or developer in that case. That being said, that's a pretty general overview of the project. As I mentioned, this does meet the conditions and requirements of a preliminary plat for the city of Laramie. It does meet those lot size and dimensional requirements for zoning. It does comply with the design requirements of Laramie Municipal Code and the planning documents that we have. And we do note that it can be served by the adequate public infrastructure as conditioned by the preliminary plat. We have done typical notice. Notice is sent out for Planning Commission as well as for City Council meetings. In both of those instances, we have not been contacted by anybody regarding that. I would be happy to answer any questions. Those are the main points I think what the council needs to know. And I don't know, let's see, and the applicant's representative is here as well, so.
Any questions for Mr. Tini on this right now? Councilor Bleekus.
On the power lines, the existing power lines are exempt. Any new power lines or power lines that are going from property line into the buildings, will they be overhead or underground?
Mayor and council, great question. Yeah, you're correct. The existing power lines would stay up, but anything new would go underground.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. So I'd like to give Mr. Coffey from LCBA a chance to come up if he'd like to add anything, or the mic is yours.
Honorable Mayor, Council, been talking about this now for years. I don't think I've got anything else to say about this. It was a very difficult project. I'd like to urge a positive vote. We can conclude this. Thank you.
Is there any questions for Mr. Coffey? Okay, thank you very much. All right, is there any comment from the public on this item? All right, discussion or comments from the council? So I guess I'll add, for the record, to echo Mr. Coffey's sentiment, this is great to see this moving forward and on the agenda for approval. So we appreciate the hard work of not only our city staff, but also of LCBA and your groups to make this come to fruition. So I know it's taken a lot of everybody's time and a lot of hard work, so thank you very much. All right, City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Stoner,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Kalikas,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Kinney. Schuster,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. That motion carries. All right, on to item number 12, Counselor Schuster.
Thank you. The title is Original Ordinance Number 1986, amending Chapter 12 of the Municipal Code by deleting Sections 12.08.110 and 12.08.120 and amending Sections 12.08.090 and 12.08.100 related to obstructions of the city rights of way. I move to approve on second reading original ordinance number 1986, amending Chapter 12 of the Municipal Code by deleting sections 12.08.110 and 12.08.120 and amending sections 12.08.190 and 12.08.100 related to obstructions on city streets, sidewalks, alleys, and public easements.
Counselor Schuster, I believe there was, it should be amending sections 12.08.090. I think you said 190.
Okay.
Is
Yeah,
that
I thought it said
okay?
090.
Is that okay, correction? Is that, City Clerk, is that what you're?
Is that what you meant?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
Counselor Gabriel made the second. City Attorney.
Mayor, Council, this is unchanged from first reading. Again, it just updates your ordinance to make clear that all obstructions in our rights of way need to be permitted or in accordance with our regulations. And finally, that if there are any fees associated with those permits, they'll be approved by city council.
Any questions for the city attorney on second reading here? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, any comments or discussion from council on this item? Councilor Schuster.
Education's gonna be a huge one, because I asked when we talked about this, a lot of people put out your little chalkboard and tell you what's on sale inside and everything like that, and I said, well, does that pertain to this ordinance? They said, yes, it does. So if people are just putting this out after this passes, they will be in violation of this ordinance. So I feel education through the downtown area is gonna be, really needs to be intense, because a lot of people are gonna go, well, I didn't know it included that. So we have a lot of benches that we're going to allow, flower pots we're going to allow, but if you put out your little signboard, we're not gonna allow. So it's gonna be a little different.
Any other discussion, comments? All right, city clerk, can you do a roll call, please?
Polikis.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Stoner.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries, and as a quick reminder to council, that will appear on the consent agenda for third reading unless there's any objections. Councilor Schuster, is that all right?
I thought it was gonna be on the regular agenda, because we're also gonna put the
Oh, that is right.
resolution with it.
Thank
So
you.
I think
Good.
it's gonna be on regular agenda with the resolution of
You
the
are
fee
correct.
structure.
Thank you. We
So I
can do that
imagine
on the
it-
regular agenda. That's fine. Thank you. All right, item number 13, Vice Mayor.
Sure, I move to approve Resolution 2018-45, authorizing the submittal of a build transportation grant to the U.S. Department of Transportation to support additional planning and design work for the reconstruction of Ivinson Avenue, including improvements from 15th Street to 1st Street, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Do we have a second? Second. Second by Councilor Stoner. Ms. Reese.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. We, of course, talked about this quite a bit during the July 3rd meeting. The update that I would like to convey to you tonight is that after, I think, our hearty discussion and a lot more research, staff have determined that planning is in fact the best and most viable direction for this grant. The planning that we will pursue through the build program is to ready the project for build investment at a subsequent deadline. But beyond readiness for competition for construction dollars via build, I think a lot of the information that we hope to gather through this additional planning process can be used for a lot of other purposes. So the scope then of that design will to bring the current design from 35% complete to 100% complete. From a build perspective, this is really important because, as you recall, we described that they wanted projects that could be under construction by September 2020. So now when we play again, we can say, yes, it will be under construction within that timeline. That threshold of 35% design, which is where we are today, would be sufficient for state funding sources, but not this federal funding source. So that's why we have that in the current application. We will bring the design of a cycle track on Ivinson and adjoining streets to 100% design. We will develop a benefit cost analysis. This is something we spent a lot of time talking about, and this is atypical of city projects, and we think will require a significant amount of consultant investment. We will complete an environmental assessment of the entire area. This assessment would be required for any federal funding source we would pursue, whether it be TAP, which funds bike enhancements through the Wyoming Department of Transportation, or the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is administered by the Wyoming Business Council. If we are going to get any federal funds, either through BUILD or through our state partners, we'll need to do this anyway. We will also, I wish Mr. Hansen were here, we will also develop a strategic plan for developing a multimodal system in this corridor and adjoining areas. Let's see, we will improve and enhance the mobility between campus and the commercial corridor, and of course that was at the heart of our 35% design. Then including highlighting the government centers within that corridor, of course the building we're sitting in, and our partners at the county. We'll also look at opportunities for public art and pedestrian amenities that support our public art program, and then additionally enhance and maintain the visual appearance of the corridor, addressing especially aging trees within the corridor. So those are the suite of services we hope to pursue through this program. The deadline is Thursday. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions? Councilor Gabriel and then Stoner.
Thank you, Mayor. Just curious, since our discussion a couple of weeks ago about this overwhelming process of getting the grant ready to go and all the stuff that needs to be done, have you been able to say, well, you know, maybe we can do a pretty good job, or this like it's too overwhelming, or I'd kind of like to know your assessment on getting this ready.
I think we've done we've put forth a tremendous effort. I think we've got as quality of a product as we can, given our resources and time constraints. If any of you met with our brownfield consultants this afternoon, the president of Ayers and Associates, which is doing our brownfield assessment, operates across the country with federal grants. He was estimating it would take his team about 12 weeks and 4 people to complete. He said if a client asked for less time to complete this application, he would probably need to charge more. So I just want to put that into perspective. We've done our best, and I think it's a quality product. Whether or not it's a competitive product is another question, but what I will tell you is that we've been sufficiently schooled, and now we have our work plan really laid out for the upcoming year. Should we get this award, that's fabulous. That positions us for a construction grant. On the other hand, should we not get this grant, we certainly know what issues we need to address through this or any subsequent project to be competitive for a build-ready application. I will go back to the benefit cost analysis. That is something we simply do not do. We do cost-benefit analyses, and we do return on investments, but to the level and detail that the Department of Transportation is requesting, considering things like emissions, we just simply, as a rural community with relatively clean air, don't do. So now we know what we need to do.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Stoner.
Thank you. Congratulations on getting this done in such a short amount of time. I'm very impressed. I was along the lines of what Councilor Gabriel said. I was just curious, when will we know if this will be available for next year? What's that timeline?
I believe announcements will be made in January, but that's on the kind of to-do list to double check. But my impression is that timeline is early 2019.
Thank you.
Other questions from Ms. Reese on this? All right. Thank you. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, discussion from council on this item?
Good job, yeah.
None? All right. City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Hanson absent. Gabriel?
Yes.
Polikis?
Yes.
Schuster?
Yes.
Stoner?
Yes.
McKinney? Shumway?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. On to item number 13A, Vice Mayor.
Yes, I move to approve Resolution 2018-52, authorizing the submittal of a build transportation grant to the United States Department of Transportation to support planning and engineering work for the West Laramie paving, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Stoner. Ms. Reese.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Council. So in tandem with the Ivinson Avenue project, we are also preparing an application which may be submitted pending your approval for planning for the west side. Certainly, all of the challenges I just described with respect to a project that is 35% complete exists for the west, or rather, I'm sorry, I've been in brownfield meetings all day. I mean West Laramie. So all of the challenges that I've just described for Ivinson exist for West Laramie, but to a larger extreme, because we're dealing with, of course, a larger area, and then, of course, haven't done as much foundational work. So with this application, we're still awaiting cost estimates, but we expect that planning process to be probably more costly than the Ivinson Avenue project. That said, the cap on this grant is like 25 million. I mean, it's pretty enormous. It's just atypical of a grant we would normally apply for. So planning and engineering right now are kind of refining and defining that scope of services. We hope to have that more refined tomorrow, but it will include a full analysis of the current streets that are deemed sort of pavement ready, but then additionally streets that aren't quite pavement ready, an environmental assessment and a cost benefit analysis, and again, all of those planning elements that are not just necessary for us to take action with our own money, our own resources or state funds, but additionally to prepare to compete for a build grant. So again, purely planning, and I would regard this as readiness for subsequent planning. I'm going to turn to Janine to see if you have anything to add.
I guess, Council, if you have questions about specifics on this project, I'm happy to answer them, but I'll respond versus give you more detail.
I'm turning to our city manager, because it's really been a tag you're it process, and she was the first one to kick off the game.
Questions for Ms. Reese? Counselor Shumway.
Okay, obviously, this is something we haven't had time to do a lot of fine tuning with. It's been introduced to us 2 weeks ago, but my question is this: are we looking for this planning grant just to get us to the point where we are ready to pave 2.5 miles of streets in West Laramie that are with infrastructure and, well, pavement ready, infrastructure and all of the drainage and whatever is necessary to do that? Is it any more complicated than that?
City Manager.
Mayor and Council, the 2.53 miles that have been identified as pavement ready, meaning there's sufficient storm drainage infrastructure under the roads according to Public Works, and also no water or sanitary sewer lines that need repair or replacement. I have a list of the streets if you're interested, but we believe that they're largely pavement ready if we can get final engineering design completed. and also the environmentals that would be necessary to open the door to having construction funding possibly be applied for under the same grant category next year. None of these are what I would call multiple block sections. They're semi-isolated sections largely off of Monroe Street, which, as many of you will recall, is where we last year completed enormous line placements for storm drainage down Monroe. So they tend to be about a block north or south, or excuse me, 2 blocks north or south of Snowy Range Road, and largely along Monroe, and half-block sections off of Monroe.
Other questions from council? Councilor Palikas?
Last week when we talked about this, the comments were that you didn't feel you could put in a complete application and it would be missing parts and so forth and so on. I forget all the adjectives, but there was quite a few. Is that where we're at today, or are we substantially different than that? Do we have a complete application?
Honorable Mayor, Council, that's I think a really valid question here. When we were talking about pursuing funding for construction, my answer would be absolutely not. We simply cannot provide a complete application. Now that we're providing or pursuing planning funds, we can submit, I think, a complete application. I can't guarantee to you that it's a competitive application. I'd like you to know there is no difference between a planning application and a construction application. They are structurally the same application. What's different, though, is that the Department of Transportation will hold planning applicants to a lesser standard. So, for example, the pesky benefit cost analysis we're asking for money to complete that section. So that section would normally be probably a 50 to 60 page attachment. But instead, what I'm saying is this planning process will fund the benefit cost analysis. So that's not a real, it's an interesting question to answer. Yes, we are able to complete it, but only because we are applying for a lower threshold. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Okay. Any comments or discussion from council on this item? City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Hanson absent. McKinney?
Yes.
Palikas?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Schuster?
Yes.
Stoner?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, that motion carries. Moving on to item number 14, Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to approve a resolution number 2018-50 supporting placing renewal of the optional 1% fifth penny excise tax on the ballot for consideration by the voters on November 6, 2018 general election, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. City Manager.
Good evening, Council. As you will recall, we have 2 local option pennies needing to be renewed by the voters this year. You have previously, back in April, approved a resolution jointly with Rock River Town Council and the Commissioners of Albany County to place the 6th penny specific purpose capital facilities tax on the election in August. This resolution would place the 5th penny general purpose tax on the general election ballot on November 6th, 2018. County Commissioners approved a mirror resolution earlier this morning. I understand Rock River will approve. I don't think they have yet, but as you know, we will need a jointly adopted resolution from all 3 of the governing bodies. By way of a little bit of background, of course, it is one of your adopted goals for this year to place these pennies, both of them, on the ballot for renewal. The general purpose penny, or fifth penny, is used to support basic governmental operations and activities, things like street, alley, bridge repair, pothole patching. Also is critical to our public safety provisioning, including firefighting, policing, and our emergency medical services ambulance. We use this penny for park, cemetery, and trail greenbelt maintenance, also for purchasing equipment for public safety, extrication equipment, police vehicles, ambulances, fire trucks, storm drain, ditch and maintenance, which seems especially important today, if you had a chance to see 4th and 5th Street this afternoon. Access for disabled persons, animal control, animal sheltering. Those are some, but not all, of the city services residents receive that are supported through the fifth penny. As you know, I think one of the most important things we do with the fifth penny is what you just did in the two previous votes you took, which is use the fifth penny as matching money to try to make more money off of our penny. And frankly, we've been very successful, in my estimation, over the last decade in taking fifth penny dollars and leveraging them on 2-for-1, 4-for-1, sometimes 8-to-1 returns on the investment. And then, of course, what I always call our Pay It Forward program, which is the community partner program. You all allocate each year many hundreds of thousands of dollars to outside social service and support agencies that provide critical services outside of municipal government proper. Those are the primary uses of the penny. I would note for you from the cover sheet that it's my opinion that since 2014, the fifth penny has become increasingly necessary to pay for those basic and essential city services, largely due to the significant decline that we've seen in revenue sharing from the state of Wyoming. As you know, we've seen our revenue from the state of Wyoming decline by about a little more than almost 2.2 million per year. That has been requiring significant budget reductions for the last 3 fiscal years in all areas of city services to city staffing levels. And I provided for you in the cover sheet some hopefully good news after 3 or 4 years of kind of bleak news. We are hoping to see, based on our current projections, a possible 2.28% gain for the period of 2014 to 19. So that's the good news. But then the other side of the coin is, but as we all know, even if those projections are realized and we see that 2% gain in overall revenue, that 2% gain is certainly well below what we've seen in regional inflation. So the fifth penny is very important, always has been, and perhaps is especially important at this point in time. I would remind the council, if we do see a non-renewal of the fifth penny, it will require an immediate reduction to budget in the ensuing weeks and probably month or two, to the tune of a reduction of about $4.7 million off of your roughly $27 million general fund. So that is a significant reduction that would be required. Of course, we talked about this a little bit during budget adoption, and did plan positively, knowing that the voters have renewed this tax every 4 years very strongly since, I believe, 1986. But if they don't renew it, we will have a lot of work to do.
Questions for the city manager? Okay. Councilor Stoner.
Thanks, Mayor. Is there a community effort to hold up and communicate to folks about this tax as there is with the sixth penny, or?
From Mayor, through you, from city staff standpoint, we certainly always prepare educational materials to explain how these taxes are used. Right now, you've seen the sixth penny information, I'm sure, out on the street more heavily because that election is in August. But we're actually in the process of preparing the educational materials for the fifth penny, and we'll start rolling those out probably right about the time of the election in August.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You might turn around, I thought, maybe she.
Oh.
It's Tuesday that our partners.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a year long.
Yeah, thank you. And you all are familiar with those 5 cent videos our partners have prepared. Some of them are just phenomenal. But trying to keep that awareness there, because certainly the fifth penny, like I said, supports municipal services, but it's well beyond that through the revenue sharing that you engage in.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the public on this item? All right, discussion by city council on this item? All right, city clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Shumway.
Yes.
Stoner.
Yes.
Hanson absent. McKinney.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Kalikas.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 15, public comments on non-agenda items. Please come forward. Welcome. A couple of things, if you can introduce yourself for the record. And we have a 5-minute time limit on public comments. And when you're done, if you can sign the sheet that's sitting at the table marked media, that would be great.
I understand. Thank you, Mayor. Hi, City Council. Hi, Mayor. I'm going to try really hard to keep everything under 5 minutes. Occasionally, I will show up at City Council meetings. My name is Jessica Nada. The last name is spelled N-A-D-A. My last name has recently been changed from Jessica Nape, N-A-P-E. I am currently at 3003 Grays Gables, right there by Jacoby Golf Course. And I know a few of you. It's good to see you. Others, nice to meet you. Just to give you a quick background on where I'm coming from and some of my experiences. I have a master's degree in international studies from the University of Wyoming. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Madagascar, and through my international studies education at UW, I did a lot of work, some emphasis on community development, which I put into practice as a Peace Corps volunteer living in Madagascar. So with those things being said, I have a couple things that I would like to just touch on, one of which City Council absolutely dodged a bullet with Matt Mead's $5 million grant to keep Wyotech going. I have heard, I guess they have 12 students over there. Mr. Mathis is working to get that going again. When I worked at Wyotech in the student services department and working with the, nonprofit organizations, 501c3s, I was going to say NGOs, you can use that too, but that's more of an international term. We had about 170 employees at Wyotech. And I don't know what the current count is, but that is a huge blow to the city of Laramie to lose 170 jobs that pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. So I just wanted to mention that. Good on Matt Mead for working with Mr. Mathis. Hopefully they will also take actions to keep everything on the up and up over at Wyotech. So with moving on, I have two separate topics. One is the mosquito spraying, and then the other is the Clark Street Bridge. I think I'll be back in 2 weeks to talk again about what the mosquito mitigation plan is. However, this is what I would like to pose to the City Council at this time, is I am extremely curious to know if you have read the safety data sheet for the chemical in which they are spraying in Laramie. Because according to the SDS sheet, it says it is highly toxic to bees, and that it should also only be used when vector mosquitoes are present. And if you aren't familiar with what a vector mosquito is, I will tell you what it is really quickly. A vector mosquito is a mosquito that carries a viral, tropical, usually tropical, but it's a mosquito that carries different viral infections like dengue fever, West Nile virus, malaria, chikungunya. There is incidences of West Nile virus in the state of Wyoming. However, last year, the cases, according to the health department in the state of Wyoming, was under 10 reported cases of West Nile virus. So, because of the time constraints, please take a moment to look over the SDS sheet for the chemical in which is being sprayed in Laramie. One of the reasons why this is of major concern to me is because I've spent the past couple months out in Virginia, and I've traveled by road. I've driven. I flew once, but mostly I drove back and forth. It is frightening, the lack of insects as you are driving across the United States. There was a recent article in the New York Times called "The Silence of the Bugs" that cites a Public Library of Science study that came out of Germany. Over the past couple decades, they have seen a 75% decrease in insect biomass, and they are taking their samples from protected areas. Okay.
So I have to just let you know, you're at about 6 minutes right
Okay.
now. I know you have another topic, so if you could do
Yes.
it in a minute or two, I'll let you
I can
continue.
absolutely do it in a minute or two. Thank you, Mayor. The other item, I was actually here in the city council meetings when the planning was going for the building of the Clark Street Bridge, the West Laramie connection and so forth. I don't recall if there was much discussion then what would take place with the Clark Street Bridge after the new bridge was put into place. The demolition is currently going on. One of my concerns just from watching that as on the ground is whether or not there's been any sort of lead abatement. There is paint on the bridge, there's graffiti and so forth. I have the lead test kits. I also have pieces of paint that I pulled off the bridge earlier today. So, does anybody have that question, or does anybody have an answer as to whether or not they have tested for lead on the Clark Street Bridge?
So we don't generally answer questions during this type, but I'm sure we can get some follow-up to you.
Excellent, then we will just pose that as a hypothetical, and I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much for the work that you do.
Thank you very much for coming tonight and sitting through the meeting. I appreciate it. City Manager.
Mayor, I'll share with you, I believe that the commenter was in City Hall today asking this question, and having been apprised of that by staff, I did submit a question to YDOT, who are the owner of that bridge. I haven't received an answer yet, but the question has been submitted.
We will get an answer, and if you can leave contact information, we'd be happy to follow up with you as well when we receive that answer. Wonderful. All right, is there any other public comment tonight? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next item, which is consideration of future council work sessions. Do we have any requests? Councilor Schuster.
Don't know if I'll get a second, but being near the new walk bicycle line, there's a lot of electric scooters and a lot of electric bicycles now, and at the beginning of the trail it says no motorized vehicles, which they are. So I would also like to know from our law enforcement if we're having any problems on the streets. I've seen everything from gasoline powder skateboards going down the streets and everything else, and I have a little scooter, and by law I have to license it, even though it is under 8 horsepower. And I do have license and insurance on it, so I would like to know that. And I would like to correct her in one thing. Wyotech received a loan, not a grant. LCCC would have received a grant.
So Counselor Schuster, to your request for the e-bike, e-scooter kind of policy update, or at least what are we supposed to be doing? I will gladly second that. I know my oldest wants an e-scooter, and apparently it's all the rage going around with our young people. So I think that would be a great idea.
I'll just add to that, Mayor. I don't know if folks have heard about this on the news, but there are new scooter and electric bike companies that are just coming into cities without collaborating or permitting or anything. I recently visited Seattle and they are just literally scattered everywhere. So I don't know if there's a threat of something like that happening here, but I agree that we should have the
Maybe be
conversation.
ahead of the curve.
Sorry, if I may.
Ms. Reese, please,
I've
yes.
seen this Scooter Mayhem do, it's amazing. So within the build application, in that multimodal element, we did articulate that we would like to look specifically at these new modes of transportation. So that answer might be more thoroughly researched should we receive this funding.
Sounds like maybe a work session to kind of see where we're at and maybe what we need to talk about.
That's smart.
Is that good? Okay.
And can we call it the Hanson?
Multimodal, we'll call it, yeah, we could do that.
The Dare to Care Express.
The Dare to Express.
Charles has his hand up over there.
All right, go ahead.
Do we have any other requests for work sessions? Okay. All right, Counselor Schuster, item number 17, please.
I move that city council adjourn for the evening.
Do we have a second? Second by Counselor McKinney. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.